The United States is finally supplying Ukraine's military with cluster munitions, lethal and contentious explosives that may be devastating to Russia. Rishi Sunak has made it clear that Britain regrets the use of the missile after Joe Biden agreed to send missiles to Ukraine to assist in the fight against Russia. The UK Prime Minister said on Saturday that the UK is one of 123 countries to have signed a treaty banning the use of these weapons after the US president made drastic cuts. Mr. Sunak, who will meet with Mr. Biden in London before the NATO meeting on Monday, said the UK supports Kyiv by providing tanks and long-range weapons. The Ministry of Defense said in an update that Ukrainian forces had good results in the Bakhmut area. The US also considers the tank to be successful in at least 3 areas of the front, including Kyiv's north and south of Bakhmut. Bakhmut has been the focus of violence in recent months, with Ukrainian and Russian forces launching artillery and rocket attacks in trenches and mine-paved fields, which leaders on both sides have described as meat grinders. The United States announced on Friday a new weapons program that includes the supply of explosives to Ukraine. Missiles are deadly and dangerous, but they can improve Ukraine's attack. Experts told Insider how and where Kyiv used bombs against Russian defense problems. Ukraine has been fighting the US for months to procure missiles, a very dangerous and controversial weapon, and now, after nearly 500 days of warfare, the US has agreed to supply them. The White House and Pentagon announced on Friday for the first time $800 million in new security aid to Ukraine, which includes anti-nuclear weapons. Experts say that the bombs will help in the fierce and bloody offensive of the Kyiv army, which began to attack Russia's defense against the virus. It's an important additional capability that they don't have at the moment, Kurt Volker, former U.S. Special Envoy to Ukraine negotiators and U.S. Ambassador to NATO, told Insider. Nothing will change the game, but every bit helps. More than 16 months after a major Russian invasion, Ukraine has many Western weapons at its disposal. These include the British equipment of the cruiser Typhoon, which officials praise for its combat capability, and the German-made Leopard 2 tanks, which provide the boys of the Ukrainian forces with strong grounding and mobility. F-16 fighter and Army tactical missile system ATACMS maneuvers can also be promising. But experts say that as the Ukrainian counteroffensive enters its second month and continues to make small gains in the east and south, the rockets could hit a blockbuster at a time when Ukraine must muster all its fighting strength. Missiles can be launched from the air or fired as cannons, inflicting damage over a larger area. By using less ammunition, the Ukrainian army will be able to eliminate many threats and inflict serious damage to the Russians. These missiles can become an advantage in artillery wars and useful tools for removing fortifications, where Ukraine sometimes finds itself at a radiation disadvantage. Federico Borsari, a member of the Transatlantic Defense and Security Program of the Center for European Policy Studies, said that despite the controversy, Friday's announcement was not a surprise. The United States and Ukraine have long debated the possibility of using these explosives. But it's also not an easy decision, he said, because these decisions have some moral and political implications. This weapon was first widely used in World War II when the German-made butterfly cannon fell on the battlefield and turned into a bullet in the second half of the 20th century. A modern rocket is a canister of many small bombs that can be launched from the ground, such as missiles or cannons, or dropped from an airplane. In this case, the U.S. fired 155 mm artillery shells at Ukraine, called dual-purpose enhanced conventional munitions, PICMs, which can explode in small pieces and spread over a large area. Since these missiles cover a large area of land, they can threaten many enemy positions at the same time, causing them to pass quickly and inflict damage. Retired Light said the rockets inflicted particular damage on the Russians in the unguarded trenches. Jean Ben Hodges, who oversees the U.S. Army's European program. They will cause serious damage to any Russian artillery in and out of the area. Some bombs, such as the air-launched Mk-20 Rockeye, also known as the CBU-100, could carry hundreds of bombs and explode over the entire region at high altitude, Borsari said. This ability is especially useful against armored vehicles and tanks. Borsari added that Ukraine is not a panacea for its counterattack on Russian fortifications, that Ukraine must use them carefully to avoid adding explosives to Russian minefields, and that any place with explosives is an important dead zone for Kiev and Moscow forces. Added. Indiscriminate danger to population. Ukraine has long requested the bomb from the United States, but has not made much progress on weapons, in part because of widespread concern that the null value is higher than the accepted level, that is, sometimes they do not bomb. T-crack, they said it will pose a great risk to the public for years to come. In 2008, 108 countries signed the Cluster Munition Convention to prevent the use, modification, or manufacture of cluster munitions, considering their potential to cause damage in the region and threaten the public before an unexploded bomb. This came after the 2006 Lebanon War, in which the Israeli army was accused of dropping millions of bombs on the country. Bombs are currently banned by more than 120 countries, including most NATO members, due to concerns about the possibility of civilian casualties. However, the United States, Ukraine, and Russia did not sign an agreement banning the use of this technology. Due to their range and movement patterns, missiles can become invisible and hit outside of their targets. Small unexploded bombs can remain unexploded for years and effectively act as landmines, posing a great risk to civilian activities even after the war is over. Advocates such as Amnesty International have said they oppose the use of rockets in Ukraine, describing them as a controversial weapon that poses a serious threat to the civilian population long after the conflict has ended. The transfer and use of explosives by any country in any situation is against international law. The Biden administration must understand that any decision that legislates for the widespread use of this group bombs in warfare will have a positive impact, in addition to civilian deaths, the Observer said on Thursday. Told. Human Rights Watch has previously accused Russia and Ukraine of using missiles in the war, and Russia uses more than Ukraine. The group has seen Russia use explosives in public places such as schools and hospitals, and Ukraine has used them in Russian-held areas in and around Izium, east of the city, last year. At a White House press conference on Friday, National Security Advisor Jack Sullivan told reporters that he had assured reporters that Ukraine would reduce the use of explosives near areas where civilians might come in. Sullivan said discussions about where to send the bombs are continuing as the nature of the war is still very fluid. Ukrainian men and women fighting for the armed forces of Ukraine want to use this will implied in the question to harm Ukrainian citizens, and I find it against their principles. They are eager to protect. They are ready to risk their lives to protect their compatriots and friends, he added. In announcing the new security package Friday, Secretary of Defense for Policy Colin Carr said the failure rate of U.S. PICMs is lower than that of Russian missiles, while Russia's is specifically below 2.35% compared to 30 to 40%. Carr said, "I am as worried about the plight of people as anyone else. But the worst thing that can happen to the Ukrainian people is that Russia wins the war. So it's important that they don't."